Florida State is going to miss out on a couple of recruits today. Well, let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into another recruiting edition of Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Please hit that like button and that subscribe and share this podcast wherever you can. Truly appreciate you all coming in to check it out. Today, we're going to talk about a couple of recruits they're not going to get. At one point, I thought they were going to get at least one, if not both of them, but that is recruiting. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. Please check them out. They are the sponsor for all our recruiting information here on the Locked On Network. Locked On is very happy to have them, and so am I. Today's show is also, again, just straightforward. I tell it like it is. Florida State misses out on Zadrius Rainey Sale, the linebacker out of the state of Washington, and this was one I thought they were going to get up until about yesterday or so. I got a little word, but even like the Washington people, they weren't like positive. And here's the backdrop to this. He committed to Washington, but then the coaching staff change happened and Florida State was on him. Prior to that, there were some people thought that Florida State might get him because there's connections to him. You get to Saban stepping down, Washington staff heads to Alabama. Long drawn out process. Florida State trending. The one hinge that was not completely locked in is one that Florida State actually uses quite often for their own benefit most of the time. Keep in mind, Florida State recruits locally most of the time. Mom wanted him closer to home. That is a rough one to overcome, and it's probably the most difficult in general, but it is what it is. Rainey Sale is a really good linebacker, 215, 220 pounds. He's a young man that probably could have played Will or Mike at some point during his Florida State career, but he's headed to Washington barring something unforeseen. Two things about him before I move on to the next guy. Number one, this does not mean that it's over. And number two, Florida State certainly has quite a few linebacker options to think about. So let's talk about the next one. Here in just a few minutes, Gavin Nix is going to make his decision barring something unforeseen, and it is recruiting. Florida State will come in second or third on this, depending on your perspective, but Miami is going to get him. He is a linebacker at IMG Academy. From what I was told, they were more impressed with the overall opportunity at Miami in regards to the NIL and regards to what they thought of the school academically. That's what I've heard, and I'll just take them at the word for that, the people I spoke with. So it is what it is. Florida State recruited him hard, and Gavin was actually a Florida State fan growing up. He gave Florida State a look, but he's going to pick Miami, again, barring something unforeseen. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. Tomorrow, Tavion Wallace is going to decide. And this is a big-time player that Florida State's trying to get over Georgia. It's one of the few schools that's actually had any success against the Dogs would be the Noles. Tavion is one of the best linebackers in the country. So, again, this is just kind of like linebacker week with Florida State football recruiting. It is what it is. But this is one I expect them to win. But I thought that on some other kids on the intel I got, and things go back and forth. NIL, coaching decisions, relationships, there's a lot of complexity to this. I don't know if there's any chance it'll change, but one thing I know, especially for an in-state player, I never count out Georgia. They annihilate teams on the field because of them going out and getting not a ton of Georgia prospects, honestly. Just the kids in the top 8 or so in the state, they'll sign 5 or 6. That's the problem. This is one of those kids that can be considered in that group. And in many years, he maybe not quite that high, but it depends on your perspective. And Florida State needs more linebacker help. This kid can fly. He has the ability to change directions and get out in the flat and cover running backs, slip screens. He would do well to end up at Florida State for the Noles' sake, I can tell you that. But, again, we won't know on that one until tomorrow. That's something to think about. Last little piece for the news that's kind of done for the day, and I don't believe it. That's why I didn't lead with this. But if it does come to fruition, this is very bad for Florida State. Allegedly, Jalen Wiggins, I've heard this from two sources now, Jalen Wiggins is going to stick with his commitment to be a Florida Gator, at least for now. Will that hold true if Napier and his staff get canned at some point during this season? I'm personally predicting him to get fired the week before the Georgia game. That's my prediction. But we'll see. Jalen is a big-time player from Tallahassee, Rickards High School, and he's a defensive lineman. You cannot lose the local kids. Said it a million times. He's the number one guy on the board in terms of all-around things. Great kid from your hometown. Can't let those guys go to your rival. Position of need, critical position on the field, all the above. They lose this, it is a major blow to the class. There is no shortcutting this at all. I don't care who else they sign. I don't care if they sign 5 other good D linemen. It needs to be 6. Cannot lose kids in your backyard, period. With that being stated, I've heard it from 2 people. Florida State is not going to get him right now. But again, December is signing day. It is not in July. So that's the way I look at it. You're talking about 5 more months before signing day. Perhaps that'll change in time. But right now, Jalen Wiggins is going to be a Florida Gator. One piece of national news that just shows you how wild things can be with recruiting. And this is a kid that I know Florida State recruited as well. Cortez Mills out of Homestead, Miami, Florida State, Florida. Numerous programs ran on him. At one point was trending towards Miami. Auburn made a run at him. Miami wasn't going to take him. Trends towards Clemson. Something happened there. He's going to Oklahoma. He just committed to Oklahoma. His recruitment was everywhere. And if there's anything that it tells me is that recruiting is very fluid. These so-called offers, they're like a nickel in terms of what their value is, because you better take the offer and not wait around. You wait till late June, early July. Even if you're good as Mills is, and he's good. That's a receiver that could have went to a bunch more schools if he'd have committed earlier, ends up at Oklahoma. I know that wasn't the choice that he wanted, but he waited. A little advice for anybody out there. Be careful for what you wish. Waiting on those offers. Some others might dry up and go away. So something to think about. Before I close out here today on this shortened edition of Locked On Seminoles, just want to bring up a few recruits I've touched on a little bit from Future 50 a few days ago. Just a few kids that have mentioned Florida State. Zachariah Fort, we call him Zach. He is a safety / nickel at IMG Academy class. These are all class of 26 kids. Florida State, Ohio State, and Notre Dame are the 3 to watch. He'll probably get back to Florida State this fall from what he was telling me when I was interviewing. He's one of the top players in the country, conservatively a top 100 kid. Watch out there for any of those 3. It's anybody's race. He is a national recruit and has been for a long time, originally from the state of California. Derek Cooper backed off his Georgia commitment. Still pretty heavily involved with the Dogs. Miami, Florida State, Florida are all in there. He has North Carolina and Alabama are schools that are in on him. National recruit at linebacker or running back. Cooper's about 210 right now. He was fantastic at the Future 50 event. Loved his footwork. Loved his ability to compete, and he played both spots. He's going to be a national recruit, and it's just a long way to tell for where he's going to end up. Aiden Pouncey, Winter Park High School, right there in the middle of Orlando, 6'2", 6'3" corner, has been playing safety up until now. This is a young man that I expect to see rise in the rankings once he makes a little more of a round this next spring and after this season with like 7-on-7 and everything. He's going to be a kid to watch. I think he could end up about anywhere, but Pouncey's one of those kids. Florida State's involved. There's a chance for anybody in state, really. And of course, 6'2" corners are hard to find. So look out for Aiden Pouncey. A kid that has a little bit of an interesting recruitment going on is Jaden Pettit. He's at a First Baptist down in Naples. Dad's a Miami fan, but his son is a Florida State fan. They kind of have a rivalry going on. He was really good at the event. Big guy, 200-plus pounds. He could be a boundary receiver. There aren't a lot of those. So he probably is going to blossom into a national recruit. And I think Pettit, especially after the way he performed at the Under Armour camp, is a really good player and a great kid too. So keep an eye on Mr. Jaden Pettit. Adam Balagoon Ali, he is one of the best prospects in South Florida. He's from the Benjamin School. He's a linebacker, has started and led the team in tackles since his freshman year. And that's a kid that's just a tackling machine. I think that there's a chance that he could end up at any of the 3 Florida schools, but he is originally from the state of Oklahoma. So the Sooners are involved as well. Watch out for him in general. His recruitment has went nuts. He told me that just in one open period, he got 17 offers. So he'll be a national recruit. Anytime you have a linebacker that can run like him, there's a chance for that. And finally, just kind of an overview, recruiting now for Florida State, even in 26, it's got its quarterback. Anything is possible. I do know that Brady Smeagol said he's going to recruit some kids and whatnot. Look for Florida State's wide receiver class in 2026 to be really, really good. Before I wrap up, please, once again, hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I truly appreciate it. If you have any questions or anything, you can drop me a line there on the YouTube channel in the comment section. I'm more than happy to see what you got to say. Let's talk some Noles football. We're only about a month from fall camp starting. Today's July 1st. So let's talk about it more tomorrow here at Locked On Seminoles. Everybody have a great night.